All right, we're on to chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, or the Song of the Lord, or the celestial song. This chapter is called Jnana, Karma, Sannyasa, Yoga. The word jnana is cognate with our word in English, know, and in Greek it's gnosis. It means like divine knowledge, direct experiential knowledge of reality, jnana. And it's pronounced jnana. It looks like jnana, but it's pronounced jnana. The next word is karma. We've been talking about karma. Karma means action or work. Sannyasa means renunciation. And yoga generally gets translated as union. We might talk more about it. Krishna defines it as samatvam, equanimity, even-mindedness is one word that he uses. It means that when you're established in the state of yoga, this is from chapter 2, by the way. When you are established in the state of yoga, you are in a space of equanimity. And that means that you are undisturbed by dualities, by the play of dualities. So you're established in this non-dual space yourself. You have achieved a state of union within yourself. So let's do chapter 4. This is very interesting. They're all very interesting chapters, but there's some interesting revelations that Krishna has in this chapter. Here we go. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Visasvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshva Kave Bravit. The Blessed Lord said, I taught this imperishable yoga to Visasvan. He then told it to Manu. Manu proclaimed it to Ikshvaku. So this is a lineage. And Krishna is saying he taught this to these ancient sages, or these ancient godmen, including Manu. And Manu is the author of the laws of Manu. It's a famous Hindu scripture with legal legalistic material. Let's just go on. So he's establishing a lineage, right? He taught these teachers this yoga that he's teaching to Arjuna. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu sa kaleneha mahata yogo nashtaha parantapa. This, handed down in regular succession by the royal sages, was known. This yoga, however, has been lost here over time. O Parantapa, burner of the foes. This is the name he's giving to Arjuna, the burner of the foes. So this yoga, this supreme yoga, was handed down, but it got lost over time. So he's bringing it back. Sa evayam maya te dya yoga proktaha puratanaha bhakto si me saka cheti rahasyam hyetad uttamam. That same ancient yoga has been today taught to you by me. For you are my devotee and my friend. It is the supreme secret. So he's teaching the supreme secret, Uttamam Rahasyam. The supreme secret he's teaching to Arjuna. It was lost, but now it is found. And he's teaching it to his friend, Arjuna. Arjuna Uvacha, Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katam Itad Vijaniyam Tvam Adu Proktavan. Arjuna said, later was thy birth, and prior to it was the birth of Vivasvan, the sun. How am I to understand that you have taught this yoga from the beginning? So Arjuna has a very brilliant question, which is, how was Krishna, who is right here before him, how did he teach the sun this yoga? How did he teach all these ancient sages, godmen, yoga if he's here right now? The same question was asked of Jesus. You might recall in the Gospel of John that Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. And he is saying that he was before Abraham, he was before everyone. He is the ancient of ancients. So something very similar, to what we find in the Gospel of John is being said right here. Verse 5. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me Vyatitani Janmani Tava Charjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veta Parantapa. The Blessed Lord said, Krishna, many births of mine have passed, as well as of thine, of yours, O Krishna. I know them all, but you know not, O Parantapa. He's calling him Parantapa again, scorcher of foes. I know all of my past incarnations. I have been around for forever. I'm eternal. Krishna is eternal, and I know all my births. You don't know your births, though, but I am aware of mine. So this is bringing in the idea of reincarnation. And it's going to bring in the idea of incarnation as well. Ajopi sanavya yatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svam adishtaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. Though I am unborn and of imperishable nature, and though I am the Lord of all beings, yet, governing my own nature, I am born by my own maya. Now, maya, by my yoga maya power, is interesting, because maya is usually translated as illusion or the veil of illusion. But here it is yoga power. Krishna is saying, by my own maya, I have done this. He says, this is a very paradoxical statement that he's making. He's saying, I am eternal, I am imperishable, I am the Lord of all beings, and yet I have taken on a body. And how is that? How is that possible? And you could say it's a form of maya, it's a form of illusion. But the other meaning here of maya is yogic power. So through his own, you could say, yogic power of illusion, Krishna is here giving Arjuna and us this ancient secret of yoga. Okay. Yada 7. Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadat manam srijam yaham. Whenever there is a decline of righteousness and an increase of unrighteousness, O Arjuna, then I manifest myself. So whenever dharma declines, whenever righteousness, you could say the moral order declines on earth, Krishna takes on a body. He comes, you could say it doesn't have to be Krishna per se, but we'll get into that. But whoever it is the Lord, in other words, can take different forms. And the Lord in this case is Vishnu. Vishnu is the preserver. So there's the Trimurti, which is the trinity of gods. There's three gods. There's Brahma, creator, Vishnu, maintainer, preserver of Dharma, and Shiva, the destroyer. Basically, Shiva is the destroyer of the ego, right? He brings things back to the original state of reality. But Vishnu is in charge of maintaining Dharma. And you could say that's righteousness, the moral order, the cosmic order of things. Dharma has many meanings. Here it's translated as righteousness. And whenever there's unrighteousness, Krishna says, I manifest myself. I take on a body. Verse 8. Paritranaya sadunam vinashaya cha tushkritam dharma sanstapanarthaya bhavami yuge yuge. For the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born in every age. For the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked. We're assuming that the wicked here are the Kauravas. Arjuna is the leader of the Pandavas, and they're fighting the Kauravas. Krishna is born to bring back the Dharma to humanity in every age. Whenever it declines, whenever Dharma declines, the avatar comes back. And it seems to suggest it happens in every age. What is an age? It's a good question. Could be every generation. We'd have to go into that question. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo viti tatvataha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. He who thus knows in their true light my divine birth and actions, having abandoned the body, is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna. So, whoever knows me as I truly am, Krishna is saying, they are not born again. They don't have to take another birth. Now, again, Gospel of John, Jesus says something very similar in the Gospel of John. He says, whoever has faith in me and knows that I am from my Father has eternal life, will have eternal life. It's very similar. You can't deny the similarity between those two things, even though the language is different. And obviously, Jesus in the Gospels does not talk about reincarnation, which is an interesting thing that is not brought up into the Gospels at all. Verse 10. Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavam agataha. Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained my being. Tapasa, by the fire of knowledge. Tapasa jnana. Jnana tapasa, the fire of knowledge. Purified by the fire of knowledge, free from attachment, fear, and anger. Who is free of fear, anger, and attachment in this world? Not many, but Freudian slip there. Krishna does say, many have attained my being. Many, right? Mat bhavam, my divine love. Many have attained me. Verse 11. Ye yata mam prapadyante tans tataiva bhajam yaham mama vartman uvartante manushyaha parta sarvashaha. In whatever way men approach me, even so do I reward them. My path do men tread in all ways, O Arjuna. Vartma is path here. My path do men tread in all ways. This is an interesting line. Everyone's coming to me. Everyone's is coming in their own way to God, back to God. Back home again, you could say, if you don't like the word God. Everyone's coming in their own way, and everyone has their own path. Kan kshantaha karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha Chipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Those who long for success and action in this world sacrifice to the gods, for success is quickly attained by men through action. Not exactly clear what is meant there. Action. Sacrificing to the gods, this is brought up in the last chapter. Sacrificing as a way to appease the gods and to get success in the world, in worldly endeavors. 13. Chatur varnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. The fourfold caste has been created by me according to the differentiation of guna and karma. Though I am the author of it, know me as non-doer and immutable. So again, this is a paradoxical statement Krishna is making. He's saying, I am the one that created the caste system out of guna and karma, the gunas being sattva, rajas, and tamas, the three constituent elements of the entire material universe are the three gunas. Krishna has created the caste, the four castes, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas. I'm gonna not remember all the different names actually, but the two that are the most important for this particular scripture are the Brahmins, which is the priestly caste, and the Kshatriyas, which is the warrior caste, and that is Arjuna is a member of the Kshatriyas. He's not a Brahmin, he's a Kshatriya, he's a warrior. So Krishna is saying, I am the author, I created these castes, but I am also beyond everything. So how did that happen? Evam gyatva kritam karma purver api mumuk shubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmadvam purvai purvataram kritam. Having known this, the ancient seekers of freedom also performed action. Therefore, you should also perform action as the ancients did in days of yore. So, the ancient seekers also did this. The ones that knew this yoga, and you should also perform action. What is meant by that? So Krishna's going to go into it a little bit. Kim karma, kim akarmeti, kavayo pyatra mohitaha tate karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokshyase shubhat. What is action? What is inaction? Even the wise are confused about this. Therefore, I shall teach you the nature of action and inaction, by knowing which you will be liberated from the evil of samsara, the wheel of birth and death. Moksha. Moksha means liberation. Moksha is the highest ideal. It's freedom, liberation, freeing yourself from the bonds of karma. And here it's bringing in the idea of samsara. No, it does not actually say samsara. It says ashubhat, inauspiciousness. but it gets translated as, in this at least. This is bhagavadgita.io if you want to look it up. Samsara. Samsara is the wheel of birth and death and rebirth. And you want to free yourself. That's the wheel of suffering. The cycle of suffering, the cycle of rebirth that you want to free yourself from, and that is called moksha. Free yourself of suffering. That's what this is all coming down to. Freedom from suffering. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanas cha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi. For verily, the true nature of action enjoined by the scriptures should be known, as well as that of forbidden or unlawful action, and of inaction. The nature of action is hard to understand. It's hard to understand. So you want to understand what action is. It's hard to understand. Krishna's going to explain more as we go along. Difference between action and inaction. Remember that the word action is karma. Karma is the word. Karman ya pashyed akarmani cha karma ya sa buddhiman manush yeshu sayuktaha kritsna karma krit. He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction, he is wise among men. He is a yogi and performer of all actions. So you see action and inaction, and inaction in action. So how does that work? Let's just say real quickly. One simple way of putting it, you could say, is there's nothing really happening. Everything is, again, who is the doer? Krishna has already established that we are not the doer. He said the gunas are, but when it goes, when all is said and done, Krishna is the one that's pulling the strings in this whole puppet show. That's one thing. The other thing is that, like, when you sit and you're still and you're meditating, people might say, you're not doing anything. You're doing nothing. But that is true work, as anyone who has tried to meditate knows. And people that are working, depending on what they're working for and the attachment they have to what they're doing, that also might be, you could label it as inaction. They're not really doing anything, or not anything important, or that's going to help them. That's one way of looking at it. I'm not saying that that's the only way to look at this. And I think Krishna's going to say more of what this all means. Yasya sarve samarambaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnana gni dagda karmanam tam ahuhu panditam buddhaha. He whose undertakings are all devoid of desires and selfish purposes, and whose actions have been burned by the fire of knowledge, the wise call him a sage. So a sage is someone who acts without desire and selfish attachment. That is true action. That person is a sage. That person is a true yogi. Tyaktva karma palasangam nitya tripto nirashrayaha karmanyabhir pravrito pi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Having abandoned attachment to the fruits of the action, ever content, depending on nothing, he does not do anything even while engaged in activity. So this is the meaning of actionless action. Someone who is acting but is free from desire and attachment, free of the desire for the fruits of whatever they're doing, content in just being, depending on nothing, They don't really act, even though they seem to be acting, and they're not accruing karma. They're not accruing more karma. 21. Nirashir yata chitatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. Without hope, controlling the mind and the self, having abandoned all covetousness, and performing only bodily actions, one incurs no sin. Again, it's saying essentially the same thing. Giving up all desire for the fruits, having a mind controlled, giving up expectations. It uses the word hope, but nirashrihi is free from expectations. One does not accrue more karma or incur sin from that. Yadricha labha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samaha siddha visiddhao cha kritvapi na nibadyate. Content with what comes to him without effort, free from the pairs of opposites and envy, even-mindedness and success and failure, he acts yet is not bound. Again, it's saying, basically the same thing, right? This person who acts in such a way is free. He has attained moksha. He's free from samsara. He's free from karma. He has transcended dualism, the pairs of opposites, has no envy, has no selfish desires. 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnana vastita chetasaha yagya vacharata karma samagram praviliyate. To one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, and who works for the sake of sacrifice, meaning for the sake of God, the whole action is dissolved. So, in other words, again, it's saying the same thing. It's saying someone who has freed themselves from desire and attachment is established in knowledge, jnana, and is offering everything as a sacrifice to God, meaning everything is offered up to God, all one's doings. There's no more karma, right? They've gone beyond karma. 24. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir Brahma Agnau Brahmana Hutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. I used to say this as a meal prayer. It's used as a meal prayer. And the meaning is Brahman is the oblation. Brahman is the melted butter, the ghee. By Brahman is the oblation poured into the fire of Brahman. Brahman indeed shall be attained by one who always sees Brahman in action. So Brahman being the name for the ultimate reality, Nirguna Brahman, meaning God without form, whereas Krishna, you could say, is Saguna Brahman. He is God in form, but Brahman is God in the abstract without form. But you see, in everything you do, you see only God. And that is how you attain to God. That is how you attain to Brahman, the understanding of Brahman and the knowledge of Brahman. 25. Daivam eva pare yajnam yoginaha paryupasate brahmagna vapare yajnam yajnaivo pajuvati. Some yogis perform sacrifice to the gods alone, while others who have realized the self offer the self as sacrifice in the fire of Brahman alone. It doesn't say which one is better, but some yogis perform sacrifice to the gods, right? Pujas, they offer worship, paryupasate, but others who have realized the self, they've attained self-realization, offer the self as sacrifice in the fire of Brahman alone. I would think that the second one would be preferable, according to what this is saying, but let's go on. 26. Shrotra dinir driyanye sanyamagnishu juvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagnishu juvati. Some again offer the organ of hearing and other senses as a sacrifice in the fire of restraint. Others offer sound and other objects of the senses as a sacrifice in the fire of the senses. Juvati is sacrifice here. Agni is fire. Indriya is the senses. The indriyas are the senses. I think it just really means restraining your sense organs, going beyond the senses, and that is a form of sacrifice, right? You're going beyond the senses in order to know the truth of reality. Sarvanindriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma sanyama yogagnau juvati jnana dipite. Others, again, sacrifice all the functions of the senses and those of the breath, the vital energy or prana, in the fire of the yoga of self-restraint, kindled by knowledge. So they offer the functions of the senses and the prana, which is the vital life force. It's not just the breath, in the fire of the yoga of self-restraint, kindled by knowledge. So it's a form of self-sacrifice, offering the prana and the senses, going beyond these in order to know the truth. Dravya yagnyas tapo yagnya yoga yagnyas tatapare svadhyaya jnana yagnascha yatayaha sanshita vrataha. Others again offer wealth, austerity, and yoga as sacrifice, while ascetics of self-restraint and rigid vows offer the study of scriptures and knowledge as sacrifice. Jnana yagnya is the sacrifice of knowledge. Svadhyaya is mentioned here as the study of the scriptures, which those of you who know yamas and niyamas, Svadhyaya is one of the niyamas in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So this is mentioning here Svadhyaya, the study of the scriptures. And this also mentions Yoga Yajna, the performance of Eightfold Path of yogic practices as sacrifice. Now, this does not say Eightfold Path. That is an interpretation that is offered here. So whether, we don't know if this is really talking about the Eightfold Path, although that came later with the Yoga Sutras. And obviously, if this came after Buddhism, Buddha had the Eightfold Path of the Buddha, right? The Noble Eightfold Path of the Buddha. So this could have known about this, could have known about that. But it doesn't mention it per se there. Apane juvati pranam prane panam tata pare pranapana gati rudva pranayama parayanaha apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juvati sarve piete yagya vido yagya kshapita kalmashaha. By the way, the word yagya is mentioned a lot here, and the word yagya means sacrifice, right? Others offer as sacrifice the outgoing breath into the incoming, and the incoming into the outgoing, restraining the flow of the outgoing and the incoming breath, solely absorbed in the restraint of the breath. Now, mentions pranayama, the restraint or the control of the breath. Whether it's... Now, this is also mentioned in the Yoga Sutras, right? The pranayama, the control of the ingoing and the outgoing breath. It's talking about different ways, different yogic paths, right? Different things that yogis do. Apare niyata haraha pranam praneshu juvati sarve piete yagya vido yagya kshapita kalmashaha. Others who regulate their diet offer life breaths in each life breath. All these are knowers of sacrifice whose sins are destroyed through sacrifice. So these are all different sacrificial paths that are used. This one talks about mitahara, meaning the yogic diet. Let's see what it says here. Yeah, talks about aharaha, eating. Mitaraha meaning yogic diet. So that's what's being mentioned there. Some yogis do that. Yagya shishtamrita bujo yanti brahma sanatanam nayam loko stayagnyasya kuto nyaha kuru satama. Those who eat the remnants of the sacrifice, which are like nectar, amrita is the word, go to the eternal Brahman. This world is not for the one who does not perform sacrifice. How then can they have the other, O Arjuna? So you have to perform sacrifice to attain Brahman, right? Some kind of sacrifice. Which again, this is found in most ancient religions. Judaism being one of the, if you look at the Bible, sacrifice was well known. It was understood that there needed to be some kind of sacrifice made in order to appease the gods and to attain to spiritual wisdom. Some kind of sacrifice. 32. Evam bahu vidha yagya vitata brahmano mukhe karma janvidi tan sarvan evam ginatva vimokshyase. Thus manifold sacrifices are spread out before the Brahman at the face of Brahman. Know them all to be born of action, and thus knowing you shall be liberated. Different kinds of sacrifices, many kinds of sacrifices. This is the way to liberation. Some kind of sacrifice. 33. Shreyan dravya mayad yagnyaj jnana yagnyaha parantapa sarvam karma kilam parta jnane parisamapyate. Superior is wisdom sacrifice to the sacrifice with objects, O Parantapa, Arjuna, scorcher of foes. All actions in their entirety, O Arjuna, culminate in knowledge. So here, this answers that question we had before, which is it better to offer objects as sacrifice or to sacrifice, sacrifice what is illusory in one's mind, and attain do the sacrifice of self-realization. And Krishna is saying that is actually superior, is the sacrifice that involves wisdom, right? That is better, that is greater than the sacrifice of things, that you sacrifice this or that physical thing versus you sacrifice the illusion, the illusory. (34) Tadviti pranipatena prashnena sevaya upadeksyanti te jnanam gnaninas tattva darshinaha. Know that the wise who have realized the truth will instruct you in that knowledge through long prostration, supplication, and service. Not exactly clear what is meant there. Maybe it'll be clear as we go along. 35. Yad jnatva na punar moham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutan yasyeshena prakshyas yatman yato mai. Knowing that thou shalt not, O Arjuna, again be deluded like this, and by that you shall see all beings in thyself and also in me. So, knowing that, sorry, I didn't really say that right. Knowing that you shall not be deluded again like this. And by attaining to the knowledge of Brahman, you will not be deluded, and you will see all beings as in Krishna and Krishna in all beings. You will see the truth. You will see the true reality in everything. 36. Api ched asi papebhyaha sarvebhyaha papakrit tamaha sarvam gyana plavenaiva vrijinam santarishyasi. Even if you are the most sinful of sinners, yet you shall surely cross over all sins by the raft of knowledge. Now, this is an interesting idea. It also seems to be, echoed in the Gospels. This idea of forgiveness of sins, you might say, right? That knowledge. But it's not necessarily in the Gospels, because in the Gospels you have the idea of faith in Jesus relieves you of sin, takes away your sin, right? Here, though, this is more of a Gnostic approach, which says through knowledge you might have performed all these different sins, accrued all this karma, but through knowledge all that will be dissolved, and you will attain to the far shore of Brahman, on the far shore of eternal life. You will free yourself of all sin. Yatai dansi samido gnir basma sat kurute Arjuna gnana gnihi sarva karmani basma sat kurute tata. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ash. So the fire of knowledge, Jnana Agnihi, or Jnana Agni. The fire of knowledge reduces all action, all karma. It dissolves all karma, to use a mixed metaphor, right? It burns karma. 38. Nahi gnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga sansiddhaha kalinat mani vindati. Verily, there is no purifier in this world like knowledge. He who is perfected in yoga finds it within the self in due time. This is really extolling the virtue of knowledge, this whole chapter. Obviously sacrifice, but the sacrifice of knowledge, right? And knowledge is like, this is the greatest path. This is the path of knowledge. The purification through knowledge, jnana. Shraddhavan labate gnanam tatpara sanyatendriyaha gnanam labdva param shantim achirenadi gachati. The one who is full of faith, devoted to it, and has subdued their senses obtains this knowledge. And upon obtaining the knowledge, they attain the supreme peace immediately. Brings you to supreme peace, right? Param Shantim is supreme peace. Transcendental knowledge is jnana. Brings you to the transcendental knowledge. And Shraddha is faith. Through faith, through controlling your senses, through controlling your mind, and finding true knowledge, which is jnana, gnosis, you attain immortality. Or peace, supreme peace. A few more verses here. Verse 40. Agnash Shashraddha Shraddadanash cha sanshayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukam sanshayatmanaha. The ignorant, the faithless, and the doubting self go to destruction. There is neither this world nor the other, nor happiness for the doubting one. You won't have happiness here or there. The ignorant, the faithless, and the doubting, they go to destruction. They will be destroyed. Now, this does seem to be similar to the Gospels, what Jesus says, that hell for the unbelievers. You will go to hell. You will be destroyed. Vinashyati falls down. Sanshaya atmana, the skeptical soul. We'll have to talk more about that, right? What does that really mean? Is there eternal damnation? Is there eternal hell? Isn't there reincarnation for such a soul? Won't they get another chance? Etc., etc. We have these questions. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchina sanshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya. He who has renounced actions through yoga, whose doubts have been dispelled by knowledge, and who is self-possessed, such a one is not bound by actions, O Arjuna. It seems to be saying the same thing as what was being said before. It's saying something very similar, right? Not bound. The person who has renounced actions, selfish attachments, they've attained to knowledge. They do not accrue more karma. They have gone beyond action. They have realized the truth. They've gone beyond action, and they're not bound by action. Tasmad agnana sambutam hrit stam gnana sinatmanaha chitvainam sanshayam yogam Tishtotishta Bharata. Therefore, with the sword of knowledge of the self, cut asunder the doubt of the self, born of ignorance, residing in your heart, and take refuge in yoga. Arise, O Arjuna. Bharata is another name. Bharata is the descendant of Bharat. Bharata is also a name for India. But this is an epithet of Arjuna here. Krishna is calling him Bharata. So therefore, with the sword of knowledge, cut asunder the doubt of the self, born of ignorance, residing in your heart, and take refuge in yoga. Sanshayam, take shelter, atishta. There's a similarity in words here. Atishta, take shelter. Utishta, arise. Take shelter and arise. Take shelter in yoga and arise, O Arjuna. Utishta, arise. And that's the end of this chapter. And I hope it was helpful. And I hope we learned a little something. Obviously, this chapter again was praising jnana and the sacrifice that leads to jnana. And there's different kinds of sacrifices. There's you could say the more external form of sacrifice, which involves material or physical things. And then there's the inner sacrifice, which Krishna says is a higher form of sacrifice, where one lets go of one's desires and attachment to the senses, even controlling the life force, pranayama, and finding the truth within oneself, jnana, attaining to jnana within oneself, which leads to knowledge of Brahman, which is Brahman being the eternal absolute. And in attaining to that knowledge, one is free of karma, frees themselves of karma, frees themselves of samsara, of ignorance. Avidya is ignorance. Samsara, the cycle of birth and death and rebirth and suffering, and attains moksha, liberation or freedom. So that's all in this chapter. Hope it was helpful. Next time we're going to do chapter 5. Chapter 5 is Karma Sannyasa Yoga. That's going to be more of the same, right? Talking about karma. Karma yoga. It's going to be dealing with karma yoga. So see you there. Thank you.